Postmodern perspectives, understanding parasocial societies through Lacan, Derrida, Baudrillard, and Debord. Welcome to another episode of Psychoanalytic Perspectives, where we delve into the intricate world of the human psyche. In today's episode, we are exploring a fascinating and increasingly relevant topic: parasocial societies. How do our one-sided relationships with media figures shape our identities, desires, and behaviors? Additionally, what can the combined insights of Lacanian psychoanalysis, Guy Debord's spectacle, Baudrillard's theory of simulation and simulacra, and Derrida's post-structuralism reveal about the deeper psychological and cultural mechanisms at play? Later on in the episode, we shall probe how these parasocial interactions are shaped by nihilism, existentialism, and absurdism. We'll consider how these philosophical reactions to essentialism reveal deeper truths about our engagement with media figures and the role of social order and morality as necessary pragmatic compromises. Join us as we unravel the complex dynamics of the imaginary, the symbolic, and the real in the context of our digital age, from the allure of the idealized media figure to the powerful influence of societal norms. We'll examine how these relationships impact both our personal lives and the broader cultural landscape. Get ready for an enlightening journey into the heart of parasocial interactions as we apply the rich theoretical framework of Jacques Lacan, Jean Baudrillard, Guy Debord, and Jacques Derrida to understand the profound effects of our media-saturated world. Let's dive in. Jacques Lacan was a French psychoanalyst and psychiatrist who made significant contributions to psychoanalytic theory, integrating ideas from structural linguistics, philosophy, and mathematics. Lacan's work is known for its complexity and for challenging some of the ideas of Sigmund Freud. Key concepts in Lacan's theory include the mirror stage, the real and the imaginary, and the symbolic orders and the notion of the other. His ideas have been influential in various fields including psychology, literary theory, and cultural studies. Lacan's mirror stage posits that an infant's recognition of their image in a mirror marks the formation of the I or ego. This idea has been enhanced to incorporate the infant's environment as a template for the emergence of the ego and acquiring one's sense of identity. At present, digital and virtual environments, e.g. social media avatars, function as contemporary mirrors for identity formation and ego development. As for the real, the imaginary, and the symbolic, these are the three orders that structure human experience. The real is that which is outside language and impossible to symbolize. The imaginary is a realm of images and illusions closely tied to the ego, and the symbolic is the realm of language, social structures, and cultural norms. In the context of modern technology and communication, it can be argued that online interactions have contributed to the shifts in balance between the imaginary and the symbolic orders. Analyzing parasocial societies through the lens of Lacanian psychoanalysis provides a unique perspective on how these relationships influence individual and collective psyches. To understand the phenomenon of parasocial interactions, it's important to trace its historical roots. Parasocial interactions, originally defined by Horton and Wall in the 1950s, refer to one-sided relationships where individuals feel connected to media figures despite lacking any real reciprocal interaction. These relationships are mediated through television, social media, and other digital platforms, creating a sense of intimacy and attachment despite the lack of reciprocal communication. This phenomenon impacts personal identity, social behavior, and cultural dynamics as people invest emotionally in figures who will never directly interact with them. The concept of parasocial interactions was first introduced in 1956 by sociologists Donald Horton and Richard Wall in their seminal paper Mass Communication and Parasocial Interaction, observations on intimacy at a distance. They observed that television viewers often develop strong emotional connections with media personalities, treating them as if they were real friends despite the one-sided nature of the relationship. Donald Horton and Richard Wall's foundational 1956 paper laid the groundwork for understanding parasocial interactions, highlighting how media figures create an illusion of face-to-face relationships. John Coggy, in his book Imaginary Social Walls, 1984, explored how people form mental images and narratives around public figures and celebrities, furthering the concept of parasocial relationships. Another scholar, Joshua Merowitz, in his book No Sense of Place, written in 1985, discussed how electronic media disrupts traditional social boundaries, facilitating more intimate and extensive parasocial interactions. Cynthia Hoffner is yet another scholar that has conducted extensive research on the effects of parasocial relationships, particularly how they influence viewers' emotions, behaviors, and perceptions of reality. In the 1980s and 1990s, R.B. Rubin and M. McHugh conducted studies that further examined the depth of parasocial interactions, particularly focusing on how these relationships affect viewers' loneliness and social behaviors. In contemporary society, parasocial interactions have evolved with the rise of social media, creating even more personal and frequent engagements with media figures. This has led to new dynamics where the boundary between the real and parasocial relationships becomes increasingly blurred, and the impact on identity and social norms continues to grow. Influencers and content creators now cultivate a sense of authenticity and relatability, making parasocial relationships a significant aspect of modern social and cultural life. In this episode, we shall use Lacan's theories as a framework to help understand the psychological mechanisms underpinning these phenomena. Before we proceed, we might be tempted to ask if parasocial societies are a completely new or purely Western phenomenon. Turns out that it might not be. In pre-colonial Africa, chiefs and kings were not only political leaders but also symbolic figures embodying the community's values and traditions. Their idealized personas and public performances created a sense of connection and identity, much like modern parasocial interactions with media figures. It is through imperialism, colonialism, and forced cultural exchange that Western ideals were inculcated into Africans' minds. And in the backdrop, an ever-growing industrial and capitalist force. Griots, or traditional storytellers, preserved and conveyed the history and moral values of their communities. The semi-mythical heroes in their stories, like Luanda Magere, functioned as idealized figures similar to how media figures today influence and captivate audiences. Spiritual leaders in pre-colonial Africa, through their perceived connection to the divine and their symbolic actions, maintained a strong presence in the lives of individuals. This one-sided relationship resembles the parasocial interactions we see today, where individuals seek meaning and guidance from revered figures. The practice of ancestor worship created a continuous yet one-sided interaction with the spirits of the deceased ancestors. This form of parasocial relationship, mediated through rituals and symbols, shaped individuals' actions and beliefs, paralleling the influence of media figures in contemporary society. These pre-colonial African instances could be held as proof that the phenomenon of parasocial relationships, where individuals derive meaning and identity from one-sided interactions with revered figures, is not entirely new. Whether through modern media or traditional rituals and storytelling, the human need for connection and symbolic figures remains a constant force shaping our identities and social norms. To illustrate the darker aspects of parasocial interactions, let's consider the tragic case of Christina Grimmie, a talented singer who gained fame through YouTube and The Voice. Grimmie built a strong parasocial bond with her fans through personal and frequent social media interactions. Unfortunately, this connection turned sinister when an obsessive fan, Kevin James, mistook this mediated interaction for a personal relationship. In 2016, after one of her performances, Kevin James tragically took Grimmie's life, highlighting the potential dangers when parasocial relationships become obsessive and unbalanced. This case exemplifies how the illusion of intimacy and personal connection in parasocial interactions can lead to devastating consequences. It underscores the need for awareness and boundaries in the relationship between public figures and their audiences. Understanding these dynamics helps us grasp the profound and sometimes perilous impact of this modern social phenomenon. The effectiveness and addictiveness of social media parasocial interactions stem from several factors. Social media offers perceived intimacy through direct access and personal content, making followers feel close to the influencers. Continuous engagement is facilitated by 24/7 access and frequent updates, while interactivity through likes, comments, and Q&A sessions enhances the feeling of a reciprocal relationship. Personalized content, driven by algorithms and targeted communication, makes interactions feel relevant and engaging. Additionally, validation from being part of a fun community, emotional investment through relatability and support, and the allure of escapism and aspiration all contribute to the powerful grasp of parasocial interactions on social media. In our digital age, technology and social media algorithms play a significant role in shaping and enhancing parasocial relationships. Algorithms curate our feeds based on engagement, often amplifying content from influencers and celebrities that we interact with frequently. This personalized content stream reinforces the illusion of a personal connection as we are continuously exposed to updates and intimate glimpses into their lives. This technological mediation makes parasocial relationships more persistent and pervasive than ever before. To illustrate the modern landscape of parasocial interactions, let's consider some examples from various social media platforms. On Instagram, followers feel intimately connected to celebrities' lives and business ventures. YouTubers foster a sense of friendship with their viewers through engaging content, merchandise sales, and more. Twitter users often feel they have a direct line to the thoughts and decisions of high-ranking figures. On TikTok, relatable and frequent posts create a strong sense of connection between TikTokers and their audience. Twitch viewers interact in real time with streamers, enhancing the feeling of friendship and community. Finally, on Facebook, users share personal stories that deeply resonate with followers, creating powerful parasocial bonds. To deepen our understanding of parasocial interactions, let's turn to the work of French theorist Guy Debord and his concept of the spectacle, as outlined in his influential book, The Society of the Spectacle. Debord argues that modern society is dominated by the spectacle, a pervasive and immersive collection of images and representations created by mass media and consumer culture. This spectacle creates a mediated reality where our perceptions and interactions are shaped by the images and narratives we consume. In the context of parasocial interactions, the spectacle plays a crucial role. The mediated personas of celebrities, influencers, and media figures are part of this spectacle, offering us a curated, often idealized version of reality. When we engage with these figures on social media, we are participating in the spectacle, forming connections, with these constructed images rather than with real reciprocal relationships. For instance, let's consider the Instagram posts of Kenyan comedian Elsa Majimbo or the YouTube travel vlogs of Miss Trudy. These influencers present curated glimpses into their lives, creating a sense of intimacy and familiarity. Yet, this connection is one sided, shaped by the spectacle of their online personas. Our engagement with them reflects Debord's idea that in the spectacle, social relationships are mediated by images and representations rather than direct human interaction. Understanding this concept helps us see parasocial interactions not just as isolated phenomena, but as integral parts of a broader media-driven reality. It raises important questions about authenticity, reality, and the nature of our social bonds in the digital age. Let us now apply key Lacanian concepts to parasocial societies, starting with the imaginary. In the imaginary order, the ego is formed through identification with images and others. Media figures often serve as ideal egos, images with which individuals identify and aspire to be like. This identification helps form and stabilize the ego, but can also create tensions when the gap between the ideal and the real self becomes too wide. Much like when fans turn into stans, completely immersing themselves in their favorite celebrity's identity. Just as infants recognize themselves in a mirror, individuals see aspects of themselves in media figures, reinforcing their sense of self. The constant exposure to curated, idealized images in media can distort self-perception and contribute to narcissistic tendencies. Next, we have the symbolic. The symbolic order is a realm of language and social norms. Media figures often become powerful signifiers within this realm, embodying societal ideals, values, and norms. These figures shape and are shaped by the symbolic order, influencing what is considered desirable or acceptable. The concept of the name of the father refers to the authority of societal laws and norms. Media figures can function as substitute figures of authority or law, guiding behavior and establishing norms within parasocial relationships. And now, as the third order, we have the real, the impossible, and the unattainable. The real represents what is outside language and impossible to fully symbolize. In parasocial interactions, the media figure embodies a form of the real, an unattainable object of desire that can never be fully known or possessed. This perpetuates a cycle of desire and frustration as the individual strives to connect with an ideal that remains forever out of reach. Jouissance and excess. Lacan's concept of jouissance or excessive pleasure and pain can be seen in the intense emotional investment in parasocial relationships. Individuals may derive pleasure from their identification with media figures, but this is often accompanied by a sense of lack or dissatisfaction. Further analyzing the dynamics of parasocial relationships in the context of Lacan's theoretical framework, we shall address the role of fantasy and the function of the other. Lacanian theory emphasizes the role of fantasy in mediating desire. Parasocial relationships are sustained by fantasies that bridge the gap between the imaginary and the real. Fans create elaborate narratives about media figures, filling in gaps and projecting desires onto them. In Lacan's framework, the other is both a mirror for self-recognition and a source of desire. Media figures function as the big other, embodying societal ideals and serving as focal points for individual desires. The parasocial relationship is a way for individuals to engage with and negotiate their desires through the mediation of the other. Transference and projection. Transference, a key concept in psychoanalysis, occurs when emotions and desires are projected onto another person. In parasocial interactions, fans transfer their desires and unresolved conflicts onto media figures who become stand-ins for significant others in their lives. This process allows individuals to work through personal issues in a mediated, often less threatening context. And what are the implications for society and individual psyche? Parasocial relationships influence identity formation, particularly in an era where media consumption is pervasive. The ideals and norms propagated by media figures become internalized, shaping self-concept and behavior. These relationships can provide emotional support and regulation, offering a sense of connection and stability. However, they can also lead to dependency and unrealistic expectations, exacerbating feelings of isolation and inadequacy when the idealized image is unattainable. On a societal level, parasocial relationships reflect and reinforce power dynamics and cultural norms. Media figures who embody dominant societal ideals become key players in the symbolic order, influencing collective values and behaviors. Lacanian psychoanalysis provides a rich framework for understanding the complex dynamics of parasocial societies through the examination of the roles of the imaginary, the symbolic, and the real, as well as concepts like identification, fantasy, and transference. We can gain deeper insights into how these one-sided relationships shape individual psyches and societal norms. These interactions reveal the profound influence of media on our understanding of self and other, highlighting the interplay between personal desires and cultural constructs. As we delve deeper into the phenomenon of parasocial interactions, it's essential to consider the theoretical insights of Jean Baudrillard and Jacques Derrida. Baudrillard, a French sociologist and cultural theorist, introduced us to the concepts of hyperreality and simulacra. He argued that in our media-saturated world, the lines between reality and simulation blur, leading us to interact with images and representations that replace genuine reality. This idea is particularly relevant when we consider how social media influencers curate idealized versions of themselves, creating hyperreal connections with their followers. On the other hand, Jacques Derrida, an influential philosopher, developed the method of deconstruction and challenged the notion of fixed meanings. His work in post-structuralism emphasizes the fluidity of text and identity. Applying Derrida's ideas, we can deconstruct the content shared by influencers to reveal the underlying contradictions and biases, highlighting the unstable nature of these parasocial relationships. Together, Baudrillard's and Derrida's theories provide us with a critical lens to understand how media shapes our perceptions and interactions in the digital age. They help us explore the complexities of parasocial relationships and the blurred boundaries between reality and representation. Integrating Jean Baudrillard's ideas on the system of objects and simulation and simulacra, along with Jacques Derrida's concepts from post-structuralism, adds depth and complexity to the analysis of parasocial societies within the framework of Lacanian psychoanalysis. Here's how these theories complement and enhance the discourse. Jean Baudrillard, System of Objects, Consumer Culture and Identity. Baudrillard's concept of the system of objects addresses how consumer culture shapes identity. In parasocial relationships, media figures often embody consumer ideals. The products they endorse and the lifestyles they portray influence viewers' desires and self-perceptions, reinforcing consumer identities. Media figures become objects within the system consumed by the audience. This dynamic alters traditional subject-object relationships where the consumer identity is continuously shaped by their engagement with these media personas. Simulation and simulacra. Baudrillard's idea of hyper-reality is key to understanding parasocial interactions. Media figures represent simulacra, copies without originals. These constructed personas are more real than reality itself, creating a hyperreal environment where the distinction between reality and representation blurs. In a hyperreal world, the imaginary is dominated by simulations. The symbolic order is shaped by these simulations as the signs and symbols of media culture become the new reality. The real, in Lacanian terms, becomes even more elusive as hyperreality takes over. Jacques Derrida, post-structuralism, deconstruction. Unpacking meaning. Derrida's method of deconstruction can be applied to analyze the meanings and structures within parasocial relationships. By deconstructing the media narratives and personas, we reveal the underlying assumptions and contradictions in how these relationships are formed and maintained. In terms of intertextuality, post-structuralism emphasizes the interconnectedness of texts. Parasocial relationships can be seen as intertextual, where media figures are part of a larger web of cultural texts that influence and reference each other, contributing to a complex network of meanings. Difference and the endless play of signifiers. Derrida's concept of difference, the idea that meaning is always deferred and never fixed, applies to the fluid identities within parasocial interactions. Media figures and the personas they project are constantly evolving, influenced by the endless play of signifiers in media discourse. Post-structuralism challenges the idea of stable, fixed meanings. In the context of parasocial relationships, this means recognizing that the identities and meanings associated with media figures are never stable, but are always in flux, shaped by ongoing cultural and social processes. Baudrillard's concept of hyperreality helps us understand how media figures, as simulacra, dominate the imaginary order. These figures are not just representations, but hyperreal constructs that shape and sometimes distort our sense of self and reality. Derrida's ideas on post-structuralism emphasize the fluidity of identities and the interconnectedness of cultural texts. Media figures are part of a vast intertextual network where the identities and meanings they convey are constantly shifting and evolving. Also, Baudrillard's system of objects highlights how consumer culture and media figures reinforce societal norms within the symbolic order. These figures embody ideals and lifestyles that shape our desires and behaviors, further entrenching consumerist values. By applying Derrida's method of deconstruction, we can unpack the layers of meaning in media narratives and personas. This reveals the complexities and contradictions in how parasocial relationships are formed and maintained, challenging our assumptions about authenticity and reality. Having explored the theoretical frameworks provided by Lacan, Derrida, and Baudrillard, we now turn to the philosophical perspectives of nihilism, existentialism, and absurdism. These philosophies offer additional layers of understanding regarding why parasocial interactions have become so prevalent in our modern, media driven society. Nihilism, existentialism, and absurdism each address the human quest for meaning in an indifferent universe, which can drive individuals towards the mediated connections offered by social media and celebrity culture. We shall also briefly explore the role of social order and value systems like morality as necessary pragmatic compromises. In addition to the insights from Lacan, Derrida, and Baudrillard, it's crucial to consider how the philosophical perspectives of nihilism, existentialism, and absurdism intersect with the phenomenon of parasocial interactions. Nihilism posits that life is without inherent meaning, which can lead individuals to seek out connections and meaning through media and parasocial relationships. Existentialism, championed by thinkers like John Paul Sartre, emphasizes the individual's quest to create their own meaning and authenticity in an indifferent or even chaotic world. This quest can drive people to form parasocial bonds, seeking purpose and connection through their engagement with influencers and celebrities. Absurdism, closely related to existentialism, suggests that while the human desire for meaning is innate, the universe is indifferent and inherently meaningless. This perspective, famously explored by Albert Camus, can lead to a reliance on parasocial interactions as a way to cope with the inherent absurdity of existence, providing a semblance of connection and purpose. These philosophical perspectives help us understand the deep psychological and existential motivations behind parasocial interactions. They highlight how individuals may turn to these relationships to fill the void of meaning and connection in their lives. Nihilism posits that life lacks inherent meaning, value, or purpose. In a world dominated by media figures and simulacra, individuals might experience a sense of meaninglessness as they confront the artificiality and constructed nature of these relationships. The recognition that these parasocial interactions are based on images and fantasies rather than genuine connections can lead to a nihilistic outlook. On the other hand, existentialism emphasizes individual freedom, choice, and the creation of meaning in an indifferent or even absurd universe. Existentialism provides a framework for understanding how individuals might seek authenticity and self-determined meaning even within parasocial relationships. Fans might find personal significance in their engagement with media figures, creating narratives and values that resonate with their individual experiences. Absurdism, as articulated by Albert Camus, focuses on the conflict between humans' search for meaning in the indifferent universe. The absurd nature of parasocial relationships, where deep emotional investments are made in figures who will never reciprocate, reflects the absurdist tension. Individuals must navigate the dissonance between their need for connection and the inherent one-sidedness of these interactions. Essentialism posits that entities have a set of attributes necessary to their identity and function. The fluid and constructed nature of media figures challenges essentialist notions of identity. In parasocial relationships, identities are not fixed but are continuously shaped by cultural and media narratives, aligning more with post-structuralist and existentialist perspectives. And now, on social order and value systems as pragmatic compromises, morality and social order. Social order and moral systems are essential for maintaining societal cohesion and functioning. These value systems provide a framework within which individuals navigate their relationships, including parasocial ones. Morality and social norms influence how parasocial relationships are perceived and engaged with. For instance, the moral outrage at celebrity scandals reflect the collective values and expectations imposed, or rather projected, on media figures. So, Baudrillard's hyperreality can lead to a nihilistic sense of meaninglessness as individuals confront the artificiality of parasocial relationships. The lack of genuine connection might evoke a nihilistic realization of the constructed nature of these interactions. Despite the artificiality, existentialism offers a path to authenticity within parasocial relationships. Individuals can find personal meaning and create narratives that align with their experiences, even in one-sided interactions. Camus' concept of the absurd captures the tension in parasocial relationships, where individuals invest emotionally in figures who will never reciprocate. Navigating this dissonance reflects the broader human struggle for meaning in an indifferent universe. The fluid identities within parasocial relationships challenge essentialist notions. Media figures' personas are continuously reshaped by cultural narratives, aligning more with post-structuralist and existentialist ideas. And morality and social order serve as pragmatic compromises necessary for societal cohesion. These value systems influence how parasocial relationships are formed, perceived, and maintained, reflecting collective values and norms. While parasocial interactions often remain relatively harmless, there are instances where they take a dark and dangerous turn. A particularly disturbing example is the case of Ricardo Lopez and Icelandic singer Björk. In 1996, Lopez, who had developed a deep and delusional parasocial relationship with Björk, attempted to send her a letter bomb filled with sulfuric acid. Lopez meticulously documented his obsession and the construction of the bomb in video diaries, revealing his disturbed state of mind. His fixation on Björk and his belief in a personal connection led him to view her relationship with another artist as a profound betrayal. This delusion drove him to create and send the bomb, though fortunately, it was intercepted before reaching Björk. Lopez's tragic suicide after sending the bomb highlights the severe consequences that can arise from extreme parasocial attachments. This case serves as a stark reminder of the psychological impact of media and the potential for these one-sided relationships to escalate into dangerous behavior. This real-life example reminds us that while many of these relationships may seem benign or even positive, they can sometimes lead to devastating consequences. Given the pervasive nature of parasocial interactions, it's crucial to manage these relationships healthily and critically. Here are a few tips. Awareness. Recognize the nature of parasocial relationships and understand that they are one-sided. Balance. Balance your time spent engaging with online personalities with real-life interactions and relationships. Critical engagement. Question the content you consume and be aware of the curated nature of social media. Set boundaries. In order to maintain a healthy perspective, avoid over-investing emotionally in parasocial relationships. By being mindful and critical of our interactions, we can enjoy the benefits of social media while mitigating potential negative effects. Integrating the philosophical perspectives of nihilism, existentialism, and absurdism with Lacanian psychoanalysis, Baudrillard's theories, Derrida's post-structuralism, and Debord's spectacle offers a multidimensional view of parasocial societies. These frameworks help us understand the deep psychological, philosophical, and cultural forces at play, revealing the complexities of our interactions with media figures. It is essential to recognize that the theories of Jacques Lacan primarily focus on the dynamics of parasocial societies and interactions. Lacan's psychoanalytic insights delve into the unconscious mechanisms and desires that drive our engagement with media figures. However, understanding the origins of parasocial societies in the modern context requires a broader perspective. Derrida's deconstruction reveals the fluid and unstable nature of meaning in these interactions, while Baudrillard's concept of hyperreality and simulacra highlight how media simulations replace direct human experiences. Theories such as Guy Debord's Society of the Spectacle offer a critical lens on how capitalism, consumer culture, and mass media phenomena create the fertile ground for parasocial interactions. Debord's spectacle theory explains how our reality is mediated by images and representations, fostering the conditions for parasocial relationships to thrive. Together, these theories provide a comprehensive framework for analyzing how and why parasocial interactions have become so pervasive in our digital age. By examining both the psychological dynamics and the socio-economic origins, we gain a deeper understanding of the intricate web of factors that shape our mediated connections. As we wrap up this episode, it's interesting to reflect on how our interaction today exemplifies our parasocial relationship. While we've shared insights and stories, the connection you feel with me, the host, is a one-sided interaction similar to those we've discussed. This perceived intimacy, where you may feel you know me through my voice and thoughts, is the essence of a parasocial bond. As you continue to engage with our podcast, remember that these connections, though one-sided, are a significant part of our social experience in the modern world. Thank you for being part of this journey with us, and we look forward to deepening our connection in future episodes. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we continue to explore the fascinating intersections of psychoanalysis, philosophy, and culture. Until then, take care and keep questioning the world around you. Goodbye for now.